Hi, Suki.
Hi, Joseph. How are you?
I'm great. Great.
Excellent. I'm so happy to be here today. So my name is Sukhi and I'm an author. And today I'm actually going to be doing a Q&A with Joseph, who is the CEO of Publica.com. So Joseph, I'm super excited to talk to you today because I've got a ton of questions about blockchain and how it can be used by authors, because this is quite a disruptive technology and it's quite a hot buzzword this year as well. So I just wanted to know if you could perhaps just kick off with telling us a little bit about what Publica is and what your role is.
Okay. So at Publica, we say, tell your story with blockchain power. And so to an author, that means it's a new distribution channel and it's got blockchain powering it underneath, under the hood. You don't have to learn what a blockchain is. It's just, it's the hottest new technology. And there's a reason for that. It's extremely resilient. It's very trustworthy. So it's a new distribution channel. It's global. So, you don't have to think about territories. We're going to talk about territories eventually in the Authors Club, but that's why some people call it the blockchain for books, or Gutenberg's press for the 21st century, something like that. But basically, it's a new distribution channel.
Okay, and so why did you guys start working with books? What sort of drew you to that, and especially helping like the self-published indie space? What drew you to that?
Well, when I was young, I self-published, and then I worked a lot of odd jobs throughout publishing. I blogged about that a bit. But books are one of the digital media in the world, along with film and TV, and I probably left something out, radio. And when we saw the blockchain power and realized that its primary power is independence in finances. So if you want to build a business, the blockchain can help you with that. So we looked at all the digital media. I've been working in television and broadcasting for many, many years. We said books is the right place to start because pretty simple, compared to Netflix, right? They have totally different problems, even though they're both digital media. And had the added benefit of, I've always wanted to go back to my first love, which is books. I read books a lot. And everyone here in the offices also concurred, also very interested in books. And we have a library here, actual, paper books. So we said, yeah, this fits our DNA. And we think we can actually do something for people. Books are how humanity helps itself. So the more you do to help authors, especially the independent thinkers and those who are serious about their work and need to make a living at it, or at least support their work in some fashion, we think we can help them. And let's get it done.
Okay, that sounds really good. So before I dive down into some technical questions with blockchain, I know authors are going to be really interested in that. What I'll just do is take a step back and get you to explain how you, because I understand you have a COO called Antons and your CTO Yuri as well. And then you mentioned that you've got the offices behind you, that's ScandiWeb. So can you maybe just put it into context how you guys came together and how ScandiWeb, which is a technology company, what their role is in Publica?
Sure. Well, technically, Publica is a spin-off of ScandiWeb, and that makes us a stage 2 startup in Silicon Valley language, which means that the people working here, they've already formed teams, they got years of experience and history together, all that kind of early startup stuff is behind us. So you're seeing, and this is one of ScandiWeb's smallest offices that we're occupying now. And behind me is the developers, the programmers of the Publica applications and platform. Don't worry that there's nobody there, because they're right over there in a conference room huddled together. They're looking at a whiteboard and a big screen, and it's like watching paint dry, but it's what they got to do. And then further back is some marketing, data science people, art, design, and so on. Over here, we have more programmers and system administrators, sort of the engine room of how a internet and blockchain platform works. And then way in the back, a couple of empty spaces for when I need a desk. And so this gives us the, by being stage 2, it's not risky, right? This is, we're not trying to form the company, it's already here. And we're funded, so we're just, getting it done. And then Anton's started ScandiWeb, but he's really spending full time on Publica. ScandiWeb is, running itself at this point. And he's the first one I met in Silicon Valley. And then I came out to, we're in Riga, Latvia right now. And I came out and I checked out all the people, absolutely love the culture here. And, in the company and in the town. We talked to Yuri about, the real nitty gritty of where is blockchain now, right? Is it ready for prime time, right? People keep seeing Bitcoin on television and, so I come from television. Let me give you a warning. Why is it on television? Because they're going to run a commercial in a minute. So why would they possibly tell you the truth? It's like, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So if they can scare you, that's what you're going to see on TV. So here's the truth of blockchains. Bitcoin is almost 10 years old, and it's so resilient. If you hear about a blockchain or a Bitcoin or anything like that, you got to ask yourself, why is it still running after 10 years if everyone's so annoyed with it? So don't worry about it. It's just technology. Actually, all the banks use it. Banks use it. Credit card companies use it. Internet of Things uses it. It's a mature technology. So we've got the developers companies together, and we're going to start distributing books. And so the blockchain portion of distributing books is really just handling the finances. And the reason we need a blockchain is the books last a really long time. I call it an infinite game that gets better the longer you play. Some of my favorite books are still being distributed, but the authors aren't writing anymore for various reasons. So the business of books goes on forever, and that's what blockchains are made for. Global, put the contract in the blockchain, it just works. And it's a wonderful thing.
Okay, so I'm just going to sort of assume that, most authors, there's a huge caveat, most authors may not actually understand what blockchain is. And sometimes it gets, the words blockchain and Bitcoin get interchanged quite a lot, especially if you don't understand exactly what this technology is about. So in a very author-friendly term, can you explain actually what blockchain is and how it's different from Bitcoin?
Yeah. Don't laugh, but this is actually true. It's a really long-running distributed video game. So if you've ever played an online video game, right, it's running on everybody's computer. And, you can check in, you can check out, you can win some points and, get together with your buddies. So it started with that, but then some people made it like really serious. And so technically it's running on hundreds of thousands of computers around the world. Some are dedicated, some are popping in and out, just like a long-running video game. And it's also a ledger. So imagine a spreadsheet or an accounting software, right, that keeps records. Well, it does, that ledger just goes on forever, right? That's why it's called a chain, right? A chain of blocks. And that brings a superpower to anyone thinking about a business model in finances, like selling books, distributing books, because the records never get messed up. They just keep getting longer and longer and longer. And anybody can read them, right? So it's not mysterious or arcane. So it's a perfect way to keep track of finances and money, especially with digital media, where, you can't go count the books in the warehouse, right? We support paper books, of course, but we don't have an inventory of our own. It's the author's inventory. And so blockchains are just a really great way to keep track.
Okay, and then can you also explain what pebbles are?
Right, so within what we're building here, something has to represent money, because authors all around the world, readers all around the world, distributors around the world, publishers around the world, That's a lot of currencies. So when you go to buy an airplane ticket, for example, to another country, well, you probably want to choose which currency. Do I want to buy it in the currency of where I'm going or where I'm from or where I'm going to next, right? So that's called currency exchange. And you're all used to it. We're all used to it. And then when you go to the airport, you're carrying your boarding pass. There's a number that's a token. And so Pebbles, PBL, it's a token. So it represents, I bought this ticket, I'm going to go use it, and it's a token. That's why we call them tokens. We call it tokenomics. So just think of the airline boarding pass. Definitely represents money. Definitely represents something you're going to get for that money. But the currency itself has been temporarily abstracted away. It doesn't say on the boarding pass what currency you paid for it.
Okay, so if, as an author, if I wanted to purchase a book on the blockchain, what I would essentially be doing is purchasing Pebbles, which represents a token, which represents a book. Is that correct?
Pretty well put, actually. Although the average use case is you're not going to think about Pebbles. It's under the hood, right? Just like it is with any other currency exchange.
Okay.
But what you get when you spend whatever currency you have, and Pebbles get bought on the way, and then a book comes back. So that is another kind of token, and we call that a read token, because I spent my Pebble token to get a read token. Kind of nice, right? So the read token gives you access to the book. It finds the book, right, wherever it is in the cloud, brings it to your device, opens it up, shows it to you, and so on. So
okay.
Pebbles are like currency a little bit, abstracted away, and then read tokens, read a book.
Okay. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but what's so unique about the blockchain is because there's a lot of transparency. If I purchase a read token, that token will only go to that particular person who bought it. So as an author, I can actually see exactly how many read tokens I've distributed. So I can actually control how many books I give away. Is that right?
That's right. An author can give away tokens, absolutely. And if the person you give it to then passes it on to someone else, you'll see that transaction as well. So you can sort of see, are my books being shared, right? How often, did I do something on television last week and it made my people share my books more, which of course you can do with free ebooks, but then you lose all that information. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, and so if I was to sell a read token to a reader, and then that reader has finished with my book, and now it's just sitting around on their shelf, or it's on their e-reader, the Kindle device, or whatever device. What if they actually sell that token onto someone else? Does the author actually benefit from that transaction? So it's like a secondhand book market.
Yeah, especially if that's what the author wants. Because you can't do that any other way. Even paper books, right? If I take them into a used bookstore, the author doesn't know. So yeah, we can make that model for you. So now I have to use a new word, smart contract. So we would take that author's intent, like every time my token gets passed on, of course I can read on the blockchain, but every time it gets passed on and the money involved, well, I want some of that money. So I make that deal with my readers, that's the kind of deal we're doing with this book. Great. So how does that work? Well, the blockchain, we write a smart contract into the blockchain. So you don't need another computer. You don't need a centralized infrastructure. You don't need accountants, any of that. Just when the token goes through and the read token goes through and a pebble comes out, part of the pebble goes that way, part of the pebble goes that way. And so that's why we had to come up with a name, Pebbles, to make it easy to understand. Yeah, but I had dollars, or I had euros, or I had yen, or Krugerrands, or whatever. But it was a pebble when it went through the contract, and then it got translated to your other currency when it got to you.
Okay, so when you talk about the concept of this pebble, and it's is being distributed everywhere. So I'll take a little step back and talk about the smart contract. So the smart contract is essentially the business model,
right?
that the author chooses to have.
Mhm.
So can an author can you basically have two different authors using Publica, but having two separate smart contracts, or does Publica require every author to operate under the same smart contract?
Absolutely not. Early on in the project, we drew something called the Publica Circle, and we drew illustrators, editors, book packagers, order takers, agents, ad copy, writers, proofreaders, right? All the people that work in making books wonderful. And in real life, of course, those people, they team up at various stages, and they may want to distribute the revenues, based on whatever they decide is the right way to do it. Um, and uh, and major publishers who have, who are attracted to economies of scale, they pare that down to a couple of models, right? Pick one or the other and then go. Well, we said that's really not necessary for us, because it's the author's business and the people they bring together. So that's why we say, if you can say it, we can program it. So whatever that group wants to do. One example is a textbook where I think you wrote one. You were in a book where with other authors, weren't you?
Yes, the fintech book.
Okay, that's a great example, because you would then get your share, right? And so would the other authors. Another great example is the illustrator, the editor, right? You shouldn't really write a long form book without an editor. You can't really edit yourself when it gets long form. So maybe they should get a share of revenue. And then there's another one where, one author writes the first edition, and then a different author writes the second edition, right? Some later time. But the other author, well, they're part of the deal, right? They wrote the first one. So anything you can think of, we can program it in a smart contract.
Okay, so some authors actually like to get their books translated. So, hypothetically, what if I had a book, it's written, so my book, Escape the Cubicle, is written in English at the moment.
Okay.
Just say, hypothetically, I wanted to get it translated into Chinese. Could I maybe have a business model whereby when I sell the book, every time the book sells, a copy of the book is sold, a small percentage of the money goes directly to the translator, but then it gets capped at, say, $2,000. Is that doable in blockchain?
Oh, it's only doable. That's normal. That's like completely easy. But it's funny you mentioned Chinese. Is that what you said? Because I don't know if everyone knows this, but in China, translation is like an online game, like Pokemon, right? Where you run around looking for these little cat tokens or whatever. And you can see why China would need a lot of translation, right? There's a lot of books not written in Chinese. So it's a little bit like the wisdom of crowds, right? And the winning translation, so a lot of people work on the translation, and then maybe there's a prize, or maybe you get the book by doing it best, or the team that does it best. So it's like a community thing. And we realized that's actually the best way to do it in any language. And that's actually, blockchains are perfect for that. And so is crowdfunding in general. So in the Publica operational model for an author, right? Of course, if your book's already done, you've already published it somewhere else, now you just want to distribute it here, that's pretty normal. But in your example, what if I want it translated? And not just Google translated, I want the cover translated culturally correctly as well. Because as you know, bad things can happen if you don't understand the culture of what that image means in that other country or in other language. So we have this concept of the author's campaign or the author's journey. And so there's this time period where you would get your translation done, get your illustration done, get all of it done right. You're going to share some of the book revenue, maybe pay some upfront. I'm starting to describe a smart contract, obviously. And the end result is a better quality book, of course, for the buyers. but it's also a better quality life for the author, because all of that work, that kind of distracts you from your next book. So you should get to the point where you want to do this, say a month of this stuff, get everyone together, get the book designed, finished, get the deal worked out with everyone else, campaign it to the world, because that's now we should focus on. And then when it's sort of over, put an end to that, and then go back and write the next book that's in you. It's just easier on your head. So at Publica, we call that, at the end of that process, we call that your perennial seller page. And of course, it would be here on our website if you want. You can take it back if you want. You can link them if you want. But we had to call it something. So we call it the perennial seller page, because it's now going to sell forever on your terms. So there was something about, the way to think about it is, if you can remember when books were like a really big deal and there were author tours and they go on television and radio and book signings, right?
Yeah, book signings and all that, yep.
In my youth, that's what we used to do. And think about it exactly the same way. You don't want to do that all year long. You want to say, I'm going to do my world tour from here to here. And I'm going to go on TV, radio, whatever happens, and then it's going to be over. So that's how we modeled the author's journey here.
Okay, so as a first-time author, so I have one book out, Escape the Cubicle. If I was going to use Publica, what I would do is go to the website, register. So I noticed that you have the author's journey page up, which is a landing page, and it asks for your email. And when you register, you actually will get like guided tutorials, and you guys will help authors to basically get up and running. So once I've got my book up there, I would basically enter like a crowdfunding campaign. Is that right?
Well, it's a campaign for sure, but crowdfunding may not be your model, but it has a lot in common with that. And certainly if crowdfunding is what you want to do, that would be the place to do it. Other crowdfunding platforms aren't really tailored for books. This one is absolutely for books and authors. Just that's all we do. And because there are some quirks that aren't supported by the other crowdfunding platforms. And so we're calling the people who are doing that, we call them the Authors Club, because not on the site today, because we're redesigning the whole architecture. Right now, the site's pretty simple, but there is a author sign in here to get participate in what you said about those tutorials and get your campaign ready. And we're going to put a big sign up of, as you go to that part, it says, "Hush, authors at work."
Or authors are writing, do not disturb.
Right. Like you would at the library. When I was younger, when we were putting together a book launch, I would go to the Library of Congress as up in the States, or the Bodleian if I was in the UK, and go to the author's room. They have them. There's a room for authors. And that's where you have the right resources, other authors, and you sort of get this all together. So I think of it like that. It's the author's room in the Bodleian, but we're calling it the Authors Club since it's virtual.
Okay, so with this crowdfunding page, or it's a book page, the way I understand it is two types of authors can use Publica. So you've got one author who hasn't written their book, so they're at the very early stages, and what they can essentially do is put up their book campaign and essentially start selling tokens.
Yeah, like getting an advance, right? Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're actually selling a token, which is going to allow the reader to purchase the book once it's completed.
Yeah.
And then for authors like me who already have a book, so I'm not crowdfunding for an editor or a book cover designer, because that's already done. Yeah. So for me, what I would actually be interested in is, how can I basically distribute my book to a wider market, and how can I make more money from it? So right now, my book is what we call wide. It's not exclusive to any publisher or distributor. So I have my book available on Amazon.com. I also have my book available on Kobo and Apple, and you can go into a bookstore and order my book. So what would happen if I wanted to basically distribute my book on Publica? Does that just mean that is another way to get the book out? And if my book at the moment is actually going through a distributor who's essentially a third party, I know for sure I'm not collecting 100% of the money that I'm making. So how is Publica different? If I put my book and sell it through Publica and sell the token, which can be bought with a Pebble, how much revenue do I take?
I think almost all of it. We turn that upside down completely. We have a platform maintenance fee. There's electricity involved, and the blockchain, needs to be spoken to, but nothing like what you're used to. I think you get 90% of it, something like that. Don't quote me, but it's going to be close to that. So essentially, you keep all the money. So in your example, you're making yourself the distributor, and as a distributor yourself now, because it's not our book, right? You're not signing over rights to us. You're just asking us, please let me build a smart contract that does this. So as your own distributor, now, of course, you can set your own bulk prices. So maybe you want to sell, 10 or 10,000 read tokens to someone in South Africa who's very familiar with that market, right? You get your bulk sale up front, they sell them in their market, whatever, as well as to individual readers. And so that's perennial, right? So once you make the deal, you're done. It just runs automatically forever. So you become your own distributor.
Okay, so then that essentially means that as an author, if I become the distributor, I'm actually in more control of where my books are going.
Absolutely. And total control. That's the main point.
Okay. And with most publishers or third parties, whenever you do make a sale, the monies usually don't come to you until 30 days or 60 days or even 90 days later. How soon will the revenue come to the author if they are using blockchain to distribute and sell their books?
2 to 10 minutes.
Okay, so that's super fast.
Yeah, you won't even notice. It'll just be there.
So this is really, really disruptive, Joseph. Most of the time, when my book went live, it was in October 2017. So it's been out for 3 months. And actually, I got an email just yesterday from Amazon saying, oh, your first royalty payment is heading your way. And I couldn't, I was super happy that I sold a few copies, it's my first book. But at the same time, I felt slightly annoyed that I'd had to wait 3 months for my money to come to me, and it's my product, it's my book, but essentially the distributor was just holding it like a kitty or a float, essentially.
Well, there's an economy of scale issue here, right? Your business is exactly the size that you can make it. Their business, they're trying to boil the ocean, right? They're trying to get as big as they can be. So they aggregate all these services, and the computers get bigger, and data centers and clouds, and it does wonderful stuff. But the cost of that is that, you got to kind of fit into the model, and, so we just say, well, with a blockchain, just do it your way.
Okay.
It's scaled to you, not to them.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So Joseph, can you talk a little bit about geographic boundaries and licenses and rights as well?
Sure. Actually, that's going to be episode 2 of the Authors Club tutorials we were just talking about. Because as an author, you've probably already signed something, right, with someone else because you have a book out. You clicked a button at Amazon, right? You just told us that. And so I don't know how closely you read those contracts. You're probably not a lawyer, but the good news is that on a blockchain, there's no contract. I mean, there's your smart contract that controls your money, but we don't have rights in the same sense. And we don't need them either, right? Because there's just nothing to argue about. I bought the book, I got the book, okay? So, but there's something about rights. Global. So also, all blockchains, unless they're privately, walled off in your closet or something, they're global. They're just everywhere. So it's really a distributed network. So if someone is buying your book, it doesn't really matter which blockchain computer it buys it from, because they all synchronize anyway. So I think the essence of your question might be, can I sell my book everywhere in the world except one country? I don't want that country to buy my book. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. And of course, the question is, well, good luck with that, because I don't know how you stop them. But the publisher, where you got that idea from, was that the publisher who set up the rights in that country, right? They made all these agreements. Of course, it doesn't work, but it doesn't matter. At least they can say on paper, this book's not for sale in that country, until someone leaves that country and buys the book and goes home again, right? So that works great for their models, but unless you make that your model, the blockchain's not going to do that. So if you say, I don't want this book for sale in that country, well, you don't do that on the blockchain. You do that in your campaign, right? You say, this book's not for sale in that country, and sorry.
Mm. Well, I think what's really special about using blockchain is the fact that there are no geographic boundaries is probably going to be a good thing for most authors, because we want, the two biggest problems, or not problems, the biggest concerns that we have is how to distribute and market our book and how to make more money from it. So if I'm able to use blockchain to sell my book globally, I'm not really going to be complaining about that. I'm going to be super happy.
Global is good? Okay.
Yeah, so global is great. And especially if I become the distributor, then I'm completely in control where I'm selling the books. And if I'm selling my books in every country in the world, I'm not going to be particularly down or sad about it. I'm going to be super happy that my book is global. That's how you can become a truly global bestseller.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay. So right now with Publica, can only, what sort of author do you think would gravitate towards using Publica? Can it be someone who's completely brand new, or does it have to be an author who's very established and say, has over 20 books?
Well, as a new distribution channel, we have to make sure it works for both of them, right? And it also has to work for a publisher who wants to publish through our platform. They've already got 10 million books or something. It works for all of them, but so the new author, right? Those are the ones you really want to nurture along, right? You want them to learn how to because they're living in the time of the blockchain. It's the hottest technology. 20 years ago, it was called the internet. That was the hottest technology. 20 years before that, it was something else. So if you want to be successful in the blockchain era, or use the power of blockchain, then that's why the tutorials. We're going to take you through everything. You might go through them slower than someone else, who's already, this is their 20th book, whatever. But that's why we had to make it self-paced, so that everyone can decide for themselves, when do I want to actually sell my book? Maybe I want to learn a little more about it before I decide what I want in my smart contract, or I just want to pick a template, right? So we're making it self-serve that way, but it should definitely be for independent thinking authors, because at the end of the day, once your book's for sale, you should go back and write your next book. There's nothing else to do. So that's unusual, right? You don't have to check your dashboard all the time or call your publisher or say, did they pay me or not, right? That's all over with if you do use a blockchain.
Okay, so if an author sells a token, a read token for a book, how does the reader actually consume the book?
Oh, the same way you would now. You have a device. There's an app store. Go to the app store, click, or you might buy the book, right? Buy the book. Doesn't matter. Same way you do today. Nothing new. Now, some readers, we have this group we call the publicans, our own supporters, right? We have our own community of supporters because this is an exciting project for them. And most of them are readers. Some are authors. Some people are just interested in blockchain, so on. But the readers, surprisingly, are really interested in the pebbles and the read tokens, because they've sort of figured out, well, the read token, I get it, click, read book, that's what I wanted. But why is there a wallet in my reader? Right? And so I realized, even if I bought the book with a credit card and I sold it to somebody else for a credit card, I could also just give it back to the author or something. And there's a wallet in my phone now. It's a digital wallet. And what's in there? Pebbles. Oh, what else can I put in there? Other virtual currencies, but mostly pebbles. So people are gonna learn how much fun digital wallets are. I've had mine for months. I think I have 4 of them, and they're just fantastic. I just love a digital wallet. Before the blockchain era, we called them, there's a name for it, Apple Wallet, something like that, if you have an Apple phone.
Okay. So does that basically mean an author would have to have a digital wallet in order to distribute the pebbles and collect them as well?
Well, you would anyway, but I mean, you don't have to know it. I mean, because we have to put your pebbles somewhere, right? So think of the funnel effect in any sales, but especially for authors. You go up, you put your book for sale, you want all these read tokens and pebbles to come towards you, but you don't want to be going down to the bank every day. Every time someone buys a book, you don't want to run down and cash their check. You just want them to collect until you wanted to. People, you shouldn't mix your work money and your personal money, right? You have a personal account, work account, especially if you're running a business yourself, making yourself your own distributor. So the pebbles are going to be in your wallet. And we've got tutorials coming up and people to explain, I didn't have a digital wallet yesterday, so what does that look like? And it looks like exactly what it should look like. It looks like a wallet. So at some point, you're going to go to your wallet, and I'm a pretty good example. I haven't published a book in a really long time, but I'm still a writer. But I travel a lot, and I have one home in Florida, another one in Lillehammer, Norway. I'm here in Riga, where they use euros. On any given day, which currency do I want? So that's why I use a digital wallet personally. It's just so much easier. Got to pay a mortgage in Florida, got to pay a rent in Riga, got to pay a tax bill in Lillehammer. One wallet's much easier for me. But, I know that's new for you, but it's going to be commonplace very soon, is what I'm telling you. And we'll make it.
So with Publica, the way I understand it is, if I get a digital wallet and I hold my pebbles in there, and if I use those pebbles to purchase a read token of someone's book, that digital wallet doubles up as an e-reader as well. So I can actually read the book from the wallet.
Yeah, so we call it an e-reader wallet because it's the same app, right? So I could be using it to buy something, or using it to receive money, or I could be using it to read a book, or I could be using it to read somebody else's book. We just sort of, like any app, you got menus and different views, right? But it's the same function, just both sides.
Okay, so essentially it's similar to what Amazon does with the Kindle, right? If you buy an ebook, you can read that ebook on their Kindle device. And if you purchase a read token on Publica, one of the books that are available on publica.com, you can consume or read that book on the digital wallet.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but yes. Yeah, I can read my book in my wallet. Yeah, basically.
Okay. Okay. Brilliant. And so then if I wanted to transfer my read token from my wallet to someone else, say I want to give this ebook to somebody else, how do I do that if it's sitting on my wallet, on my phone? How does that work?
Well, if they've expand your question a little further. So who are you giving or selling it to Have they ever heard of Publica? Have they ever
yeah, just imagine there is someone else who is using Publica.com, and they want to buy a book. Say, for example, the author has distributed all of their read tokens, so there's no more available, but I know a friend of mine has the read token for, say, Escape the Cubicle. Could they buy it from the original person who purchased that book from me, the author?
Yes, and that's an example where the author, you would want to decide, if that happens, do I get a percentage, right? And you would have put that in your contract. So yes, they can buy from each other, and especially where a book, yours is probably a perennial, but some books kind of age out, because you mentioned, what if all the tokens are sold, right? Why would an author do that? Lots of good reasons. But suppose they were planning to issue a second edition and they're running a little bit late and somebody wants to keep buying their book. So yes, just readers can buy from each other, no problem. So how does that work well, it's in the wallet. Oh, I think this is probably the bottom of the question, is how do they find the book that they want to buy? Right. So if it's someone you know, like take, for example, university textbooks, right? You're done with the class. Who are you going to sell the book to? Well, the student that's coming in behind me for next year, right? So that's done with, do I have my phone here? Anyway, do you know what a QR code is? It's like a little square, bunch of dots in it.
Yeah, and you just scan it. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, you hold up your phones and it goes from one to the other.
Okay. So then that leads to my next question. What I understand is Publica sells the author's book as an ebook. What if I wanted my book to be sold as a print book? Can Publica.com do that?
Yes, although we're not a printer. We don't have any warehouses. So same as you, I don't know how you did it with Escape the Cubicle, but you make some deal with somebody's got a printer and some paper and a warehouse and a shipping dock, right? So you make a deal with them. And if your book is going to go global, then you might want to think about, maybe I want a few of those. Let's see how my market's going. So you make deals with them, and then when someone wants the delivery of the paper book, they would, give the token either to you to pay the printer in their local currency, or they can just give the token right to that printer if they accept that token. And if you're thinking, now, why would a printer or a warehouse accept a token? Well, you'd be surprised. We are getting bills for, we don't buy printers, but lots of stuff. We're getting bills where they say, I'd rather you pay me with pebbles. Okay, why not? Right? It's time.
Okay, so that's quite disruptive, actually. So if I was to purchase a token, I can actually take it to my local printer, say, even if it's in my library. Could I, hypothetically speaking, take that token into my local library who has a printer and say, can you please print this out for me?
Oh, yeah, like print on demand. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so
okay.
My example of I want to trade books from one student to the other, QR codes. Well, imagine my phone to a print on demand printer. Reads my QR code. There you go.
Wow.
So those printers, we're just talking now to the print on demand manufacturers, right? And explaining the same thing. They get it right away, of course. They're happy to sell more books.
Yeah, because with my book at the moment, it's all print on demand, so I don't hold any physical stock. Okay. If someone purchases my book online, if it's on Amazon, it'll go through CreateSpace, which is their print on demand service. Or if someone walks into a local bookstore and orders my book, then that bookstore is associated with like some larger distributors. So I have my book with Ingram Spark, and they're quite big here in the UK. I don't know if they're global, but they'll just get my one copy of my book printed and shipped to the store and then give it to the reader. So I don't have to hold any stock, which is great for me because I don't have to spend thousands of pounds holding 2,000 books at home trying to sell them.
Yeah, trying to be your own distributor, then you're dealing with inventory costs, right? So
yeah.
And so in the blockchain world, there's another word that comes up a lot, right? We've talked about smart contracts, tokens, global, resilient, trustworthy. Another one is called decentralized. And that's a very popular word because you don't have, you mentioned Ingram Spark. That's a centralized business, right? And you're wondering, does that cover the world or not? Whether they do or not, the point is you don't know, right? So are you going to call them up? Well, decentralized is cool because in the blockchain world, you don't have to ask that question. You just, if you have traffic in a certain country, someone's going to notice in that country, and they've got all the data, right? They know how many books you sold because it's on the blockchain. They know who you sold them to, more or less. I mean, there's no privacy disclosure here, but you know, they sort of get it, right? Oh, you were at the London Book Fair, or you were at the San Francisco Writers Organization, and look, a week later, a bunch of books sold. That's business information, and so the business, the transactions, the printing events, the print on demand, the wholesaler who wants to, you know, buy a bunch from you in bulk and then, you know, sell them themselves because they're local. That's decentralized business, and it's catching on in all businesses because it's so beneficial.
So why do you think authors should care about this decentralized business model? What if you've got, you know, some authors who are making a very good income from Amazon or in their KDP Select program? Why should they care about blockchain?
Well, like I said, you want two things. One, you want your book to find every possible reader that wants it. So take this the right way, but 96% of the planet has never signed into Amazon. So start there. and then the second is, of course, you want the maximum possible revenue. You're trying to run a business here. And yeah, I would say 90%, that's about as all you can get.
So how, like, business minded does an author need to be to use Publica? Because we've used some, you know, like scary words like decentralization, tokens, and smart contracts. You know, how much business knowledge or even technical knowledge does an author need to actually use Publica to help distribute their books and collect greater revenues?
I think you should be able to listen to a podcast because most of the, you know, what do I do now? It's going to be a podcast. We decided to do podcasts because writers spend plenty of time reading and writing anyway. And so maybe you might want to take a walk in the park and listen to what am I supposed to do next? And it's just no technical knowledge, of course. I'm from the era where I remember getting angry that we had to plug in our typewriters. It's like, what? Who would invent a typewriter that you have to plug in? That makes no sense to me. I still feel that way. Why are we plugging these things in? They weren't broken. So we take that approach. Is, yeah, you have to plug in your typewriter. Sorry about that. But the rest of it, you don't have to learn technology. Now, so we have this concept of what we call the Publica guide. And that's what they do. They guide you, right? Because you go, anything you don't want to know or you want to know more about, or you don't know how to make the right choice for yourself, because you're free to make your own business model. Become a distributor, or just say, hey, Sukhi, will you distribute my book for me? Right? So that function we call it a guide. And a long time ago, that was called a book packager. Very important function in publishing. And a book packager would do that same function for any author that just didn't want to know how publishing works. You know, I stopped typing, I want to get paid, and then I want to go type my next one. In between, that was a book packager. We call it a Publica guide.
Okay. So could I, what if some authors think, or is it right or wrong to think that, you know, as an author, I just want to focus on writing and I don't think I should be marketing my books. I just want to focus on just the creative art. So is Publica a silver bullet to help me sell as many, you know, a lot of books with minimum effort? Or is this still a bit of legwork that an author is expected to do?
Well, remember we started talking about the concept of the global book tour? I mean, be fair. Your readers, they want to know something about you. So, let them know. And unless you're going the I'm a recluse route, that could be your persona. But someone's got to tell them that you're a recluse, right? So that's really the only part you have to do. But other authors have had wonderful success and enjoy that part where, okay, I'm going to finish my book. I'm going to take 1 month, launch that baby into the world, make sure it's got the best possible chance. And then I'm going to go close the door again, so back in the author's club. I mean, just walk right through the author's club, shake hands, pat on the back, and then go back and type my next book. So
yeah,
I think that's a more realistic experience.
Yeah, I do resonate with that, because sometimes there's a misunderstanding that, if you get a traditional deal, the publisher will do all the marketing for you, and you as the author don't have to worry about that. But as an independent author, so I'm self-published, and I take a very professional and entrepreneurial attitude towards my book. So I use professional editors and cover designers, and I see this as a business. So as well as writing the book, I see it as my responsibility to actually market the books as well. So even if I was to use Publica, I need to come into this knowing that I need to bring in my own readership, and I need to put in the work to help publicize that book and get the word out as much as possible, and not just uploading a file and then expecting miracles to happen because we're using something snazzy called blockchain.
Yeah, those miracles don't happen. But you know what else happens? I've been in books a long time. Is whether the publisher does all that for you and treats you like a rock star, or whether you get really involved, and you kind of negotiate the distribution deals yourself and everything in between. At a certain point, you're done with that, right? You're on your next book. And what's really annoying is when you discover that somebody is using your book not the way you told them, or the way that you made a deal, right? Whether it's selling in a different country or that, just any version of that wasn't the deal. So that's another thing. The blockchain puts an end to that, and Publica we say at this point that's the deal, right? It doesn't get to change after this. So at least you get that for sure. But no, we don't have limo drivers or anything like that.
Okay. And so just to clarify, if an author puts their book and distributes it on Publica, do you guys become the distributor, or does that stay with me as the author?
Right. In a technical sense, we're the distributor because, we built your webpage, your perennial seller page. But you are the distributor in the sense of rights, right? We don't take any of your rights. You are the distributor at that point. You or whoever you bring into your project and say, I'm the author, that's my distributor, however you put it together. But
okay. So say, for example, you have an author who creates a book, sells it on Publica using blockchain. And then just say 1 year later, the book is a huge superstar mega seller, and the author is approached by a very big influential publisher. And say the author now wants to do a deal with that publisher. How do you sort of revoke those rights, or how does that basically work? Because on the blockchain, you're essentially, it's all open, right? Anyone can have it. So now if a publisher comes in and says, I want these certain rights, how can you sort of make that work?
Well, it's on that publisher. So, they would have to explain to you why you have to stop selling your book in order to sell your book. That was funny. but that's what they're saying, right? Stop selling your book because I want to sell it now. Well, you could say, well, so think of a pie chart. I think that's where it boils down to. So, and you mentioned before, what if the tokens are sold out? You could, of course, have just an unlimited smart contract. This, book is any number of sales, doesn't matter, forever. Or think like a pie chart saying, I'm going to sell half the REIT tokens right now. Because what if it becomes a bestseller? Well, look, I got the other half. Hey, Mr. Publisher, how much you want to pay me for those? And now suddenly that makes that negotiation much easier, because that second public, they're trying to take you off the market basically and put you on their market, right? So you say, okay, here's the half of the tokens I didn't sell. I'll give them to you for a price.
Yeah, and the way I see it is, if you're already doing so well yourself and you're approached by a big publisher, I think as a business-minded author, you'd probably have to ask the question to the publisher, what else can you do for me, or what more can you do for me that I'm not already doing?
Well, yeah, I guess that kind of speaks to, I was a self-publisher too, way back when it was nothing but paper and plastic. And yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, thank you for bringing me up into the big leagues and the flowers and all that, but what are you doing for me? Right.
Okay, and so just a few more questions, Joseph.
Sure.
If an author wants to use the blockchain, is it limited to different genres, or just fiction or non-fiction? How does that work?
Oh, genres, wow. No, absolutely not. No blockchains. They don't know. They don't know anything about genres. So no, it's completely up to you. And although that presents kind of a problem for Publica, right? Because now you're going to Publica, if you have an imprint, if you know what that is, right? ISBN number, right? Then people are going to think you're the imprint. If you don't have an imprint, or you're not a publisher, they're going to think we're the publisher. So, and yeah, people are going to come and find books there. And we're not going to shout, hey, you're not buying it from Publica, you're buying it from the author, right? But they don't, maybe they want to know that, maybe they don't. But eventually people are going to start thinking, I want a book. Let me go to Publica and buy a book. So we might get branded with a genre, but there's absolutely no reason why you should. But I don't, here's what I hope happens, is that today when you go to buy a book, or you go to market your book, you're so segmented about, well, why am I selling on Amazon? Because 4% of the world's people have logged into Amazon before. Or maybe I'm going to sell on this other one, right? Well, what if you didn't have to sign in somewhere to find a book? What if you just typed it in a search engine? I like that idea.
Yeah, because well, first of all, just going back to that 4%, Amazon, that's quite surprising, because I'm based in London and Amazon is very, very popular, and we use it for practically everything, from ordering books to groceries to everything else.
Well, that's why.
Yeah, so if you're saying that, only 4% of people actually use Amazon, then that basically means that there's a whole huge market out there that is not aware of Amazon, and they don't think that's the only place to buy a book. So
yeah, they may be aware of it, right? They have television, right? They probably know Jeff Bezos is the richest person in the world. But Amazon doesn't work where they are, or in their market, or for what they buy. And so Amazon as a concept and a business is brilliant. You go to buy a book, it's a travel book. Well, guess what's right next to it? How about some luggage? How about some travel socks? Brilliant. But it works best in places where you can have your socks and luggage delivered. So much of the world, that's not so easy.
yeah.
But for books, right? So especially the UK and the United States. Those are the two places where I'm from the US, obviously, and I lived in London. It's in my little biography blog there. And yeah, everyone thinks it's Amazon if it's an ebook, but leave, not so much.
Okay, so I guess the advantage that Amazon has predominantly in the USA and London is that a lot of readers who want books know that they need to go to Amazon. So how would a reader know that if they want a book, it's available on Publica as well. So if I, as an author, am going to go to the effort of, registering on publica.com and starting the author's journey with you, how do I know that there's going to be readers on the other end? How are you making sure that you have readers available for our books?
That was two questions. The first one was Google, right? I mean, if they don't sign into Amazon, how are they going to find you at all? So they're going to Google something, right? So we're going to make sure that everything that happens in your Publica author's journey is right where Google can find it. And everything we've talked about, decentralized, business models. I blogged that called A Billion Stores with a Common Linkage, which is exactly what search engines like. Who's looking for what? And how can I put these people together, right? So that's what Google is for. But I think the second part of your question was megaphone. How are we going to shout to the rest of the world about your book? And to sort of guarantee you that someone's going to hear you. And yes, but we're not going to use a megaphone. We're going to use something much more powerful, which is community. So when you come to the Publica process, if you have a mailing list, you should, but if you haven't done one yet, you're going to get one now. And because those are all your people that you're bringing to this community, whether you get them from your neighborhood or your university, or you just ask our publicans, hey, can you guys go find me? Because the publicans are all over the world, right? In all languages. And they want you to succeed, right? So as you build that community, instead of taking the spaghetti on the wall approach, right, where let me spam or megaphone all of humanity, all 7 billion, and hope that 0.001% buy my book. Much more effective to take the community approach, the network approach, 6 degrees of separation kind of idea. Kevin Kelly, he explained it. 1,000 true fans is actually all you need to make an excellent living. You should look that up. 1,000 true fans. That's all you need.
Okay. So that sounds really good. And the way I understand it is, once the author's campaign is over, the page turns into the perennial seller page. So I have a blog, it's called theauthorentrepreneurs.com. And I have a page there that says, buy my book. And when you click on the book, that page has a link that goes straight to Amazon. So I'm actually sending people away from me. But what I could do is, could I link the Publica page there? So, I basically have another distribution channel. Although I'm sending people away from my site onto Publica to buy the book, I'm still going to walk away with at least 95% royalties compared to Amazon, who might be just 70%.
Right. So you get the best of both worlds there, right? Where if they're on your site, they buy the book, they stay on your site because they're just going to get a token. And if they are on Publica's site and they click on authors or search or something, right? Same thing's going to happen, except your perennial seller page is a, author's profile. Here's all the books they've written, right? Here's the book that's coming up next, that kind of thing. And so you get it both ways. And again, that's what search engines love, is to see that linkage and traffic between two different sites about you and your books.
Well, that sounds really exciting, Joseph. I'm really excited about how blockchain can be used for authors. I think, we are creative entrepreneurs, and I don't think blockchain is something that is just for the finance industry, which is, usually what it's associated with. And my background was banking in fintech. So I'm really excited to see how creatives can actually use blockchain. And so I have signed up to the author's journey on publica.com because I'm eagerly watching how I can use publica.com as an additional distribution channel for my book, and to see whether I can basically have another business model that can complement what I already have. So I'm very excited. And I'd also actually suggest listeners and viewers to check out your Medium blog posts, because I think they're very, very good, and they explain the author's journey and they explain how blockchain can be used. And when you write them, you understand that you can see that you understand the self-publishing and indie space, because you were a self-published musician at one point many years ago, right?
Yeah, I started self-publishing music, but then I quickly found myself in the middle of the book of lists, #1 bestseller. So yeah, a little bit of a head snap there.
Okay, that's brilliant. So, what, just ending off this conversation, Joseph, what message would you have for authors about Publica and even blockchain, and why should they be excited about it?
Because you deserve it, really. It's writing is not a job, right? You shouldn't have an employer. You should get paid for your work, and the people who want your work, they want to pay you. You deserve it. So, yeah, come here, put it together, get your money. Be a little patient with us. Remember, this is the first wave of Publica's authors and books, and so we're going to put these episodes up. First episode was about the campaign, right, that makes your book sell and be famous. Next episode, we're going to go in a little more about what if I have other publishers, some of the things we talked about today. And then we're taking an executive retreat, not the whole company, but the few of us, to make sure that we're totally ready for the rest of 2018. The Authors Club has started because I'm going on a world tour of book fairs, right? So, but don't try to boil the ocean. We're going to do this right.
Yeah, and I'm going to be at the 20 Books London conference on the 3rd and 4th of February, 2018. Okay. So if any authors are going to be there, do come and say hello. And if you want to talk about blockchain, please, yeah, happy to do so.
Yeah, and I'll be at San Francisco Writers Convention like a week later.
Mm-hmm. All right, that was great, Joseph. I'm really excited to see your journey and also how authors and creatives can actually benefit and benefit from this technology and just basically see where it leads, because I think it is very exciting times for creative entrepreneurs. So I will be watching very closely.
Let's do this again. Get some more questions.
Yeah, let's do that, Joseph. So we are probably going to be doing these on a monthly basis. So we do encourage authors and readers and even technologists. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments, and Joseph and I will do our best to answer those in the next Q&A session. All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Joseph.
Okay. Thanks, Sukhi. See ya.